Good morning. It's the 15th day of December 2016, and this is the Good Day, Good Life meditation. Let's do this. So, a few changes again. I've moved things around a little bit. I moved the good and evil. I had that as a sub-principle for a sin and damnation, and it just didn't fit there amongst all those capital sins, as I called them yesterday. So I decided to move it into its own place. I put it right after the Path of Wildness. That was deliberate because it sets up a base work. Watch out, bunny rabbit. Plural. Bunnies. It sets up. Irvine is just full of bunnies all over the place. It's like a Australian outback or something. Bunnies. So it sets up the foundation there, and it'll make more sense when I get there. I may talk about its placement when I get there. The other thing that I did was I moved willful time management out. It's no longer a principle. It's now a new category that is comprehensive of today's thought plan and today's action plan. So instead of having it just separate on its own, it kind of made sense that if I'm conscientiously managing my time, I do that through the management of my thoughts and my actions. So it's a header now. Sorry, let me adjust the defroster here. Flashers. So let's do this. So at first we have the affirmation of human and civil rights, which after so many weeks of doing this, months really, it seems almost like a speed bump to get over before I really get started, but it really is foundation to everything, because in my objective is to become a person who just not only improves the quality of the life for myself and my family through better living and becoming a better person with better objectives and sound principles to guide me, but I also want to be a better part of the larger society and community of my species. And that is done largely through becoming informed and making good decisions that for such as voting. Seems like an obvious thing, but one of the things that's key to that is to make sure that I vote in a conscientious way that keeps in mind the individual as well as the smaller groups in society, because it's easy to throw these less powerful groups to the side in pursuit of what appears to be a virtuous act for the many. So even though I kind of may brush through it real quick, simply say that humans have rights that are endowed upon them by their society, as well as the smaller groups. It's important for me to remember that. I just say it like that. It really goes deeper than that, and I actually do think about this in my off hours, or I desire to think more about them. Off hours being when the camera's off, because a lot of this stuff happens in the off hours. A lot of these changes occur while I encounter a problem that I couldn't quite resolve the way I would have liked, and I realized that there was something lacking in my approach. My toolkit wasn't complete, or tools were arranged improperly or being used in the wrong manner. So let's get on now to the three objectives. The first is the pursuit of good, sound principles. These are the principles I'm working on here, which are 17. 2, the execution of good emotional reactions to the circumstance of my life. Responding well to what happens around me without flying off the handle or going to extremes. Digesting things carefully and controlling my emotions for good or ill. And then 3, the performance of good actions in keeping with the principles that are right up next. The 17 principles. The first of these is the principle of war. I wake every morning, rouse myself from slumber, brighten my smile and disposition as I face down the biggest foe, which is my own philosophy and values. Oh, that person looked like they weren't going to stop. And basically what I'm saying in kind of a long-winded way, I was looking at that intersection. I thought that person in the truck wasn't going to stop, and I didn't want to pull out carefully. So basically, I want to wake up every morning and get ready to attack myself. So my biggest enemy my biggest enemy are the things that I hold most dear, in terms of thoughts and principles. Of course, I hold my family dear; they're not my enemy. But I want to take down my 14 principles, my 3 objectives, and the other guiding elements. And I do that through the instrument of war, the best instrument of war, which is reason, the number 2 principle. Reason is my ability to collect facts, assemble them into arguments, and then measure if the outcome of those, if reality matches the outcome of those arguments. Do my syllogisms yield truth statements that can be replicated and verified in fact? And if not, then I'm probably wrong, or my argument is formed incorrectly, or my facts aren't straight. In any case, I'm probably wrong, and I need to refine that. And if the results do match the expectations, for example, if one of my principles fails to yield the positive results that I'm after, for example, if temperance fails to yield tranquility, improve tranquility for myself and others, as well as my ability to weather the storm of emotions within, then probably I'm off base with my reason to think that temperance is a good thing. Likewise, the application of the desire to keep in mind human and civil rights. The measure of that is the improved well-being of individuals and subgroups of society, and if that is not occurring as a result of the recognition of the rights of the aforementioned, then I'm probably off base on that too. Not good examples, but I really should probably give more examples of these things rather than just talk them out. Someone left a comment yesterday that I should probably spend more time on videos instead of enumerating all of the principles and going over them all. Spend time on each video on just one principle and go into a deeper dive. That's a good suggestion. I may do that. So the third principle is the principle of maturity, and its sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. Maturity is that state that we arrive at through the experience of life and our ability to apply the lessons learned towards better living. Wisdom is that experience. Fortitude is the ability of the application. And both will yield a more mature individual, but the real maturity arrives when they come in with both, when you can get to both, be both wise and a person who can persevere. Oh, I forgot about the sub-principle of objectivity with reason. Objectivity is just an objective point of view, not very interested in the opinions or the perspectives of the one, more interested in the facts as they really are. Although I'm interested in the opinions of the one as well, but not if the scope of their truth is perhaps limited. And if it isn't, then perhaps it's an objective truth. Interesting how that goes. Number 4, the principle of the social, is it right? Social principle is next. No, I'm sorry. I only did a war and then reason, and the next one is the atomic principle. Everything in the universe is made of atoms, bits and pieces flowing and changing. Likewise, you and I. and the stuff of which we are made will soon decompose, beginning the instant of our death. Actually, decomposition begins far sooner than that. I would say that I'm already decomposing quickly, as are you. We're trying to begin decomposing now. What if you begin? Can you begin decomposing at the moment of conception? It seems like it's a wholesale composition from that point up until some uncertain period thereafter. The decomposition begins. Maybe it's sometime in your 20s. I don't know, or it depends on the timely arrival of disease and illness. Curious thing. But anyway, the reminder with this one is that what I am will flow and change into something else quite soon, and I better make hay while the sun shines. The second principle is the principle of nature. Everything in the universe has some particular nature, and it's a good thing to identify it and recognize what it is.
Hi, I'll be right with you.
All right. For example, the nature of a coffee shop is to provide timely service for delicacies of brewed delicacies, both of the bean and of the leaf, and maybe some pastries and some other yummies along the way. This one happens to have the nature of having a drive-through that's convenient for me as I come along the way. You exchange these goods and services for legal tender and a couple of smiles. The coffee shop provides both employment for the people who work there, as well as satisfaction and pleasure to the people who are the patrons of the place. Coffee shops tend to have hours of operation. Some of them are open all the time. They have their own particular character as well, personality derived of the atmosphere of the place and the composition of the individuals who work there. That's pretty much the nature of a coffee shop. Likewise, everything has a particular nature, and it's a useful thing to...
What can I get started for you?
Hi there. I'd like to get a venti-sized extra hot latte, please.
Okay.
That's it.
$4.25. Thank you.
Thank you. It's worthwhile to recognize what the nature of everything is, if you can. So I like when I have a free time, instead of just entertaining my mind with nonsense or just listening to music or whatever, which is fun too. Nothing wrong with that. But I like to try to distract myself with, not distract myself, and you make good use of the time identifying things in the world and identifying what their nature is, including what it's, could I call it its abject nature? Would that be a useful thing to describe something's abject nature? I kind of like that. I have to look up the word abject and see if that's the right form. For example, the abject nature of this coffee shop, this Starbucks, is that it's made of it's a structure made of wood and bricks and nails and joining things, and electrified with power and operational by equipment, but animated with employees. But in fact, it's not much else other than that, and could easily dismantle the place in an afternoon and disperse all of the individuals who work there, who themselves are assemblages of nothing more than organic materials, with nothing ephemeral, eternal, or otherwise significant, other than the constituent elements themselves. Ooh, when you do that, when you, I'll have to look back at what was that word I used? The abject. When I look at the abject nature, gosh, that really does pull the lid off the top of it all, doesn't it? Okay, let me go ahead and pay for my my latte. Keep rolling the window up and down. So there we go. So the nature of things. And what else? Wasn't there something else of some principles of nature? Oh yeah. Paradigm and firmware. Paradigm is when something's usually it's with organic. It's with life. Life has a paradigm where it has a nature, a perspective, and a will. When you take those three together, nature, perspective, and will, you have a paradigm, which is its operational mandate. Self-guided, perhaps, self-inflicted. Every one has a paradigm. Every living thing has a paradigm. Of course, plants have a paradigm. Bacteria have a paradigm. You and I have a paradigm. And these paradigms sometimes conflict, but typically, most are typically benevolent. I don't think there's a lot. I like to think that there's not a lot of malevolent paradigm. Oh, there is some. Psychopaths perhaps have that. But there's a lot of benevolent paradigm, and when we run into conflict, we might just have to keep that in mind. The other part is firmware, which is instantiated as instinct within us, and it's just a reminder that it's part of our nature to have instinct, but that instinct guides us towards very primeval ends, and we don't necessarily need to abide those in the course of our modern lives. But although if you try to dismiss it, don't watch out. You can't necessarily make it go away that fast. It may hang around. So here she goes. Whoop. Hi there.
How are you?
Sorry about that.
No, you're totally fine.
I roll in the rear window though. I get so lost in the moment. So the next one is the social principle. The social.
There you go.
Thank you.
Oh,
Whoops.
sorry.
Okay, no problem. I got it.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you. The social principle identifies that human beings are social animals, that we need one another, and that our best activities in life, in terms of the greatest good that they yield, the greatest virtue that they yield, are social activities. So I try to remind myself to focus on social virtue, social activities. Even the most, simple of them, which is just the cultivation of friendship and acquaintance, has yields very real, immediate, and deep. What's the word? Condensed virtue. Okay, next after that, so we did war, reason, atomic, nature. Next after that is war, reason, atomic, nature, maturity, social. Next comes temperance. Temperance is our ability to control our response to control our consumption of both goods, services, actions. No, not turning green today? I guess not. And emotions. Oh, there we go. Kind of having a rough little patch the last 3 or 4 minutes, huh? Yeah, maybe I can get back on track. Oh, this is part of it, like temperance right here, right? I'm tempering my response to, I was a little disappointed in myself not attending to the Starbucks woman the way I should. I was distracted in opening the back window because I was doing this. I should probably not do this while I'm at the window there. But and also a little distracted by that light problem. And it's easy for that kind of stuff to kind of rise in you. You're going to kind of get up to raise your anxiety, and bit by bit over the course of the day that can have a profound effect and really diminish the quality of the day and diminish my companion. What is my companionability? What is that word? My companionableness. My ability to be a gregarious, friendly community member. Of course, because you're weighted down by that frustration and anxiety, it kind of shows. So that's what temperance is all about: is controlling that, maintaining a bottle on it, not such that you explode, but such that you can control it and dissipate the energy in a more appropriate manner. Nibbling away at the emotion, nibbling away at the cake, sipping away at the beer, just taking the appropriate amount of work, not exercising or watching too much TV, all these things. The sub-principles of temperance are propriety, doing things in socially acceptable manner, as long as the socially acceptable stuff is reasonable. For example, it's appropriate to not gossip. So avoid gossip at all costs. I almost wanted to make it its own sub-principle, but it fits nice in with propriety. Really, really avoid that. I'm not particularly a bad offender, but I don't want to be an offender at all. So I'm trying to challenge myself to avoid it at all costs, because it feels so good, doesn't it, to share a juicy tidbit about a coworker or a friend. But don't be that person. I'm talking to myself. That's not appropriate. Likewise, simplicity. One of the things that comes of living a temperate life is a simple life. Fewer things, fewer activities, fewer possessions, fewer aspirations besides the aspirations of virtue. And then finally, philosophy. Suffering. Suffering and philosophy kind of go together, but suffering. You're going to suffer if you don't grant yourself the things that you want. So therein is there's temperance. The next one after temperance, so we have war, reason, atomic, nature, maturity, social, temperance, agency, and indifference. I don't know why putting them on my fingers helps. Agency and indifference. Agents are anything that are alive, and the things that they create are their artifacts of agency. And watch out, because when you subtract out the agents and their artifacts, you're left with the stark face of reality, which I call the great indifference, because it just don't care about us. The only place you're going to find care or love, companionship, is from one another. So if you want that, seek that out with your fellows. Don't expect it from a rock. And the universe is mostly a bunch of rocks. Or stuff that can be used to eventually make a rock. And there's a little indifference. The uppercase indifference is the great indifference, which is the great nothing that doesn't give a damn. The great thing, the great stuff that the fact that the universe doesn't give a damn. That's the big great indifference. Little indifference is our perspective on the world with regard to the things that we don't control. We should be indifferent to those, to the point that we don't let them upset our equanimity, or our balance, or our even walk through life. Doesn't mean we don't respond to them, but we don't let them upset us. I really want to dig more into this. This is a part of the whole good life that I keep referring to and glossing over. It's like a deep pool. If I can go so far as to make that kind of analogy. It doesn't sound quite right. It sounds highfalutin, but it is like that. It's like passing a deep water pool that I know that there's stuff down there. I could just love to dive in and take a dive, but I don't feel yet competent to the swim. So just keep on walking by and saying, wow, a lovely, lovely pool. Yeah, there we go. The lowercase indifference. Next after the great indifference is, the agency and indifference is the best seat in the house, which is the here and now, and desire to not want things to be anything other than they are, all the while striving to make them better. That's a real tough one. It's like it's a balancing act of eating and not chewing, of staying alive yet not breathing. That's kind of extreme. But of being okay with where I am, despite the fact that I'm on my way to work on a busy, crowded freeway. I'm tired, and I feel old, and I'm a little jealous that some of my coworkers get to retire soon, and they're roughly my age. Yet I got to carry on. But it's at the same time being okay with that, in spite of the fact that it isn't perfectly what I want. Because otherwise, you're going to be disappointed along most of the course of life while you're waiting for things to be better. So next is purpose. The purpose of life is to make more life, to get your genes into the next generation. Other than that, it's up to us. My purpose is virtue, which I define as the wholesale improvement of well-being for as many as possible, including life other than human. The next after purpose is the path of wildness, I think. Let's go over it again. Let's see. War, reason, atomic, nature, wisdom, social, temperance, agency and indifference. best seat in the house. Virtue, the path of wildness. Yeah. Path of wildness is a trick that I use to get myself unstuck in life when I'm moving along and I don't know what to do. Anxiety, I'm biting my nails. Anxiety, what am I going to do? I assemble as many facts as I can under the current circumstance, make a best judgment I can, and if I don't quite not completely sure, I go with my gut. This stems from my experience in the wild places where I've come to a canyon because I hike without maps or knowing where I'm going or companions or GPS. So I just kind of, what I think kind of makes sense. The sun's over there, this much hours of light. It looks like that's the direction. There's north. Let's go this way. Fully ready to get lost and wind up really screwed up, maybe even dead. But recognizing also that the fact of moving forward is a virtuous thing. Although there are times when it's not a virtuous thing. There are times when moving forward will get you dead. But be ready for that. After the path of wildness, I'll have to do it again. Sorry. War, reason, atomic, nature, war, reason, atomic, nature, maturity, social, temperance, agency and indifference, the best seat in the house, virtue, the path of wildness. Next comes the risk of avoiding risk. This is simply a reminder that when we seek to avoid the surface level risks of life, like we'd love to live a particular adventurous life, love to go spend a year in Spain, or maybe become a houseboat architect, or an author, or a rock star, or whatever it is, whatever that 20-something, 30-something, or whatever something dream is, but we sacrifice it for the safe and sane. I keep pulling this example up because it's the most common one. Settling for the life that you didn't want. You protect yourself from the risk of failure, but at the same time you open yourself up to the more insidious risk of not living according to your nature, which if you keep that up long enough will soil your very being. And I'm not saying this happens to everybody, but it does seem to happen to some. They become what I would consider to be a monster, a vindictive, angry, disgruntled, resentful, jealous individual, lashing out from the corner that they've backed themselves into in life, waiting out death, and while snarling at the world. Wow, it really does. You can become a monster. After that comes what was that? That was the risk of avoiding risk. Oh, the new one, good and evil. The home of good and evil. That's what I want to call it. The home of good and evil. This will develop, but the point I want to make now is that good and evil reside not out in the world. There isn't, contrary to some opinion, there aren't malicious evil spirits floating around. There is no omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent God apparently floating around out there that is the architect and the agents of good and evil. But instead, in absence of any evidence that gods and demons exist, good and evil exist in here. They're concepts and principles, labels and opinions and perspectives that we apply to what happens to the world. And I'm just going to leave it at that right now. There's something very weighty and heavy about that when you recognize that, when I recognize that good and evil are not things in their own right. They are opinions, subjective indeed, and subject to change. That's something very unsettling and very, very promising as well. And I'll continue to work on that. But let's leave that right there right now. Next comes the sin and damnation. I put good and evil there as well. Also the risk of avoiding risk in order to lead up to sin and damnation. If you don't live a life according to your nature, in compliance with your nature, assuming your nature is both social and virtuous, you don't want to live out your nature if it is not social nor virtuous. But then you need to exercise temperance and just suffer through life despite what the genetic constructs gave you. But if you don't live according to it in a social and just nature, you will wind up living a less satisfactory life. In many cases, possibly becoming a monster, and therein lies the sin of living against your nature, and the damnation of living in the here and now, according in the consequence of that. Because damnation does not seem to follow. There doesn't seem to be any place that we're damned after life. We live out our damnation, the consequences of our sin now. Additionally, additional types of sin. If I had to label some, I would label these the capital sins of falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, and dogma. These are the sins of the secular world, largely because they either are an allegiance to what is not true, or they are a willingness to believe without due diligence of reason. Finally, almost done. I'm under 30 minutes now. Almost done. So we just did, complete oblivion. Complete oblivion is what comes when we're dead. There's no reason to think that there is any afterlife, or there's any such thing as reincarnation, other than the fact that our material gets reused and recycled again. But other than that, the only life that we have, the only thing that will follow after us or continue after us is the ripples of our virtuous activity through the course of life. It's quite anonymous. The anonymous ripples, very few will actually have any name associated with it, and even that is a fleeting, empty thing. In fact, the best thing is the example and the actions and the consequence of our virtuous living. So other than that, there is nothing else. Apparently there is nothing else. So complete oblivion awaits. And the thing to remember from that is, if there is no afterlife, that means there's no reunion with the loved ones who have gone before, who will join us later. Or who will not join us later. And as a result of that, there is no reconciliation if you die under in bad circumstance. I'm sorry, but there's no chance to fix that later. And finally, there's no final justice. The evildoers of the world, if they are not prosecuted and brought to justice during the course of their life, they'll get away with it. Although they have to live with the consequence of their evil doing during the course of their life, which is the damnation I mentioned before. Unless they're of a frame of mind that they don't see it as bad, then they can get away with that. And then now, next to last, the arena, which is the place where every place that I live throughout the course that I go through the course of the day and night is an arena for the exercise of the aforementioned principles. I have opportunities at work, ample opportunities at work, to exercise temperance, indifference, social goodwill, friendship, restraint, honesty, prudence, propriety. It's just like a gymnasium, a Gold's Gym for the opportunity to work on and exercise my virtue. And then last of all, the season of philosophy, which comes to those who seek it. There's a light up on the hill. Where the heck is that? There's nothing up there. Anyway, the season of philosophy, when it comes in your life, if you don't endeavor to partake of it, it will fade. It will go away, even if it lasts until the moment of your death. Your opportunity to engage the muse, which is nothing more than your own mind, but to engage the muse and to enjoy the fruits of consideration are fleeting. So you better enjoy them while you can. I'm talking to myself. Now, finally, willful time management, which has two components: today's thought plan and today's action plan. Today's thought plan is 4 pieces. Well, it's always the same. 1, to collect my thoughts before breakfast, before dawn, compose my thoughts over lunch, record them before dinner, and then die before bedtime. Today's action plan: to continue my drive with a balanced mind, easy on the accelerator, conscientious of all that's around me, recognizing the scope and distance of my influence, recognizing that good and evil exist within my mind, applying the apathy as necessary. Tough word there, because it has such a negative meaning in our society, but it also has a positive meaning. It can be a positive thing to have an apathetic view. It doesn't mean we're not loving or caring or social. And I'm working on that one now. To go into every meeting as prepared as I possibly can. To recognize the scope of my responsibility. To help out where I can. To offer opinions with a considered mind. To never speak out of turn or in haste or from prodded from emotion, but to digest my thoughts, turn them in my mind, and if I don't have a chance to speak them, to let the moment pass, but not to broach a new idea until it is fully formed and ready for disclosure, unless it be a brainstorming session where that activity is put out into the common forum. And to be a friend, and to be a good husband and father, and to come home and be with my family in body and mind and sincerely in every way. And I better wrap up. It's 36 minutes with human hashtags. Hashtag apathy, hashtag honesty, hashtag objectivity, hashtag reason, hashtag indifference, hashtag social, hashtag just. I think that's enough. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful life. And a very, very good day and a good life. I knew I'd mess that up. Take care.